Hello and welcome to another inspiring episode of Mumtaz Herbal Product Presents Voice of Excellence, a show where we spotlight remarkable individuals whose work is making a real change in the world. Today we are joined by someone whose academic journey is as inspiring as it is impactful. From the US to Bangladesh, from climate resilience to energy transformation, she has explored the human stories behind climate resilience, sustainable energy, and cultural transformation. Viewers, our guest is currently a PhD researcher at Duke University, and her work focuses on solar energy transitions in climate vulnerable communities like our country, Bangladesh. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show Dana McLachlin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for coming here, taking all the trouble to cross all the way from Bonani and to our office, and we are very delighted to have you on our show. Dana, as you have heard the name of our show, the name is Voice of Excellence. We bring excellent voices like you to inspire our audience. So let's listen to your story from the beginning. Like when you were a child, when you just started your academic career, what were you actually studying for? I mean, what did you want to be?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the US and I was actually a terrible student in middle and high school. I was really disillusioned about why people pursued studies. And then when I got to college, I took my first sociology class and I just fell in love. It felt like it gave me a vocabulary for understanding the world, for critiquing unjust social arrangements. And I just kind of stuck with it. And then after college, I found a job at the Asian University for Women in Chittagong, Bangladesh, which was an amazing place to start my career. I worked with a lot of amazing people. I grew as a teacher and I realized I wanted to pursue a career in education, and I've just kind of stuck with it since then.
So that was your first visit to our country.
Yeah.
And how do you like it in here?
Of course, আমার খুব ভালো লাগে Bangladeshi. I've had really amazing experiences in Bangladesh. I've made a lot of wonderful relationships, and I've been really blown away by people's generosity in sharing their time, their knowledge, and sharing about their experiences with me. I completely understand many people in Bangladesh have a difficult life. It's a really unequal country, so I don't want to, romanticize it or say, oh, it's all wonderful here, but I'm really grateful for the time I've gotten to spend here.
Dana, I'm quite surprised by your Bangla vocabulary and how fluent you sound in Bangla. I mean, back then, before we started shooting, when you just spoke up, I was like, whoa. It seemed like the words came out from a Bangladeshi native speaker's mouth. So how did you learn Bangla so well?
অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আসলে আমি কলকাতাতে একটা কোর্স করছিলাম আর আমি অনেক দিন বাংলাদেশে ছিলাম। আমার মনে হয় যতদিন আমি বাংলাদেশে আসলে আরও শেখা দরকার ছিল, কারণ আমার মনে হয় এই ভাষা শেখার কখনো একটা শেষ হবে না, মানে সব সময় শিখতে হবে। But I'm in general, people are so excited when you speak Bangla here as a foreigner. It's really motivating to keep learning. And people in Bangladesh always tell me, oh, Bangla is so difficult. English is an easy language. And I always say every language is hard to learn if it's not your own language. So don't feel shame if you are making mistakes or are struggling with a new language, because that's just how you have to learn a language.
Dana, you have a very diverse academic career. Could you tell us what motivated you in these shifts and how they have shaped up your perspective as a researcher?
Sure, absolutely. So I started out in sociology and gender studies because I wanted a vocabulary for understanding inequality in the social world. Every discipline has its own ways of understanding the social world. I ended up switching to anthropology because I really liked that in anthropology, what's the most important thing is people's experiences. So you really have to listen to people, you have to talk to them, you have to try to see the world through their eyes to do your analysis, which I think is a little bit different than other disciplines. And I really love that in anthropology, we really take seriously people who are otherwise considered unimportant in academic thought. So we try to talk to, people from all sectors of society and understand their perspectives in order to do our theories.
Dana, what led you to your PhD at Duke University, and how has the program supported your interest of studies, particularly those based in Southeast Asia?
Sure, thanks for your question. I've had a great experience at Duke. I think one thing people don't realize is when you're applying for a PhD program, it's really about a fit between yourself and the faculty in that department. It's not so much about the university overall or the ranking or anything like that. It's really, are you working with people who support what you want to study? And so I've had amazing advisors there who are really supportive and really, I think, welcoming to unique paths, unique projects, things that might seem a little bit offbeat and quirky. And yeah, for those who are interested in South Asian studies, Duke isn't necessarily known for it. Like other universities have much larger South Asian study centers or presences, but in a way it's kind of helpful because South Asian studies in the US tends to be really dominated by India and Pakistan. And so I'm studying Bangladesh anyways, so it's kind of nice to be somewhere where there's not so much heavy expectation about what you should study or what kind of topics are acceptable, things like that.
Our country is quite far from your home. So why did you choose Mongla as your primary field study site?
Sure. Well, I chose it a little bit randomly. I knew I wanted to study energy and I wanted to study in particular these new large-scale industrial solar plants. And in Mongla, there's one of these very large projects, and it intrigued me because it's not just on its own, it's in the vicinity of other types of energy projects. So that's why I initially went there. I will say the southwest of Bangladesh, it's an area that is somewhat fraught or kind of over-determined with a lot of representations of what people assume life to be like there, which I think can be somewhat damaging at times. And so it's been interesting, particularly studying climate, things like that, to see how daily life maybe doesn't always match up with a development gaze, which assumes a certain kind of life is happening there.
Your research touches on solar energy transitions in context of climate change. Could you tell us what you are observing in Mongla and how the local people are adapting to those changes?
Well, I would say that one thing that's important to know about Mongla is that in the development gaze, it's kind of an amorphous climate change that's affecting people's life. I think practically, it's generally the shrimp industry that has really negative effects on people's life. I'm just going to shout out two amazing researchers, Kasia Paproki and Camila Divan, who've written about this extensively. So I highly encourage you to check out their work. But I think the local idioms for understanding how the environment has changed, which are things like the air has gotten saltier, my skin is getting blacker, is something people say to me, doesn't always neatly align with the scientific understanding of what climate change is. At the same time, I would also just say that people in the southwestern, area in Bangladesh are not the ones responsible for climate change.
True.
And yet they are the ones kind of being given the burden to respond or to change or anything like that. And I think the greater burden is on oil companies, it's on multinational financing institutions, it's on the government. They have the burden, I think, of making energy transition possible. I don't think, people who are relatively low income in a global sense are the ones who should be responsible for paying for energy transition.
I hope through this show, this word reaches to the respective authorities and they really take immediate action against it. Bangladesh has often been called a climate frontline nation. In your view, what can the world learn from grassroots level solar experiments going on in Bangladesh?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. I would say that often there's a dominant imagination that thinks there's going to be one technology or one source of energy that's going to solve climate change or going to, make huge transformations in our political and economic system. And I think what I've learned from Bangladesh, it's never really about the single technology. It's not really about the single solar panel, even though those technologies can be amazing. It's really about the overall system, particularly of maintenance, the people who take care of the system, the people who make the system continue to function, the workers who do the work of, maintaining electric lines. They're often not given a lot of glory, but they're incredibly important. So I think what I would say is when we think about solutions, think about who is going to be implementing them like a long period of time rather than the one solution we think we have, if that makes sense. And I would also say, I think having spent some time in rural Bangladesh, people live with a lot of different forms of energy. They have electricity, they have gas, they use wood, they use the cow dung patties. And I think there's something to that energy flexibility that's really important that a lot of people could learn from. And I know, for example, growing up in the US, I was so spoiled. There was always electricity. If the electricity was out, it was like, oh, what do I do? I can't cook, I can't do anything. My food's gonna go spoiled. And I think people who are able to be flexible with mass systems and with systems going in and out of functioning, those are the ones who we can learn from much better than the wealthy people who consume a lot of fossil fuels.
Dana, as a recipient of the Fulbright Hayes Scholarship, congratulations by the way. So what new directions or opportunities have this one opened for you?
Well, thank you so much. I've been really, really privileged to receive a lot of funding and support for my work. I would just say we're living in a time where support for academic research is under threat nearly everywhere in the world, particularly in the humanities and the social sciences. In the US, there's been huge cutbacks in funding for scientific research, and I think those developments are really, really concerning. I think we should be funding public work. We should be funding topics and subjects that maybe don't seem directly applicable or important, but often our greatest insights come from them. So, yeah.
Lastly, what advice would you offer to young scholars from the global south who are interested in interdisciplinary research in climate, solar energy, renewable energy, or let's say global warming?
Absolutely. Well, I think we all have a moral imperative to really grapple with the environmental damage that fossil fuels, that various forms of development have wrought. So I encourage anyone, if you're at all interested in this, to pursue this field. I think there's going to be lots of opportunities for work, both professional but also activism and things like that I think is really important. And I would just encourage people to read. I feel like that's kind of a maybe nerdy answer, especially now we think, oh, reading books, that's, who needs to read a whole book? That's boring. But I think to really understand how did we get into this mess, you need to read history, you need to understand politics, and to understand how it's unfolding in different parts of the world, I think you need to be open to reading from different places, reading from different countries, from different contexts.
Thank you for the beautiful advice. I think it will be very useful to our viewers if they really follow it. We have already reached at the end of our show, but before we go, there's a small gift for you from our sponsor, which is Mumtaz Herbal product. Thank you, Dana, for joining us and sharing such wonderful insights. It was really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And it was a great conversation, and I truly wish you all the best of luck with your future endeavors. Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you for tuning into Voice of Excellence. Stay with us for more inspiring conversations with changemakers from around the world. Until next time, take care and keep striving for excellence.